Hey guys, it's Halsey Schider with the HeliCASTS podcast, and today I'm flying solo. That's right, it's just me, no guests today. In fact, it's been a hot minute since I've recorded an episode just by myself, and I thought it'd be kind of fun to ramble on for a little bit. Typically, when I do these are a little bit shorter episodes. Can't kill my voice completely, so talking for an hour straight could be tough. So I'll try to be short-winded, but make it entertaining as possible and informative. As always, that is my goal. Before we get into it, big thanks to MHM Publishing, of course, and the Vertical HeliCASTS platform for making all of this possible. To our sponsors, I'm so grateful for your sponsorship. And to our new clothing partner, I'm wearing the shirt today, HeliLife. HeliLife is a lifestyle brand geared around helicopter folks like you and me. So if you haven't checked out the HeliLife apparel yet, you got to do it. Head over to the website there at HeliLife and check out some of the really cool gear. Got this cool collared shirt. Got a white shirt over here that's like more like a t-shirt style. It's super nice, high quality. That's why I really appreciate it. One of their, I don't know what the color name is, but one of my favorite sweatshirts is I'll call it Army Green HeliLife hoodie. It's super cool. So just grateful for that. York Galland, who started HeliLife, I think, out of Utah, is a friend of mine. You may be familiar. I did a podcast, In Helicopter podcast. I'm calling it the first ever In Helicopter podcast with York a couple years back when we flew all around Utah, did an epic camping trip. And one of the most incredible experiences of my life. And now his buddy there in Utah, Clint Pulver, my friend as well, is part of HeliLife. So Clint and York are pressing the brand forward, and we're excited to have them as the official clothing partner. Of course, who else? You can't have Levi, you got to have HeliLife. Come on, this is a helicopter platform. If you haven't checked out the other podcasts on the platform, you should too. Henry Z, super cool. John and Jack doing their thing. Jack is also local to me here in Bend, Oregon, so it's fun to hang out with Jack. You got Quinny in the Real Rescue. In fact, Quinny's going to be joining me podcast soon. Talk about being a rescue swimmer for the U.S. Coast Guard, number 500, in fact. So excited to learn about that and what that looks like. You got the vertical MRO, which is everything MRO, which is pretty exciting. I know that there's a big MRO conference happening soon. So super excited for the vertical MRO. And then the newest podcast, which I'm completely blanking on right now. Of course, Valor Flight Crew. Sorry. Long day. I got a newborn baby. I'm not sleeping well. And I'm a total jerk right now. But in fact, I'm going to have Mike and Blake from the Valor Flight Crew podcast on my show here soon. Can't wait to introduce you to those guys. And look, hey, we're going live here. That's how we go, right? Sometimes you make little mistakes. Not a big deal. Just figure it out. Keep going. So excited to be part of the HeliCASTS platform. And of course, this is the Helicopter podcast. And today, I thought it'd be fun to talk about just my brand a little bit, Sellacopter specifically. And look, I don't know, I'm probably near 150 plus episodes in. I don't actually know the number. But look, I've been doing this for a long time. I've had a couple solos. I've talked a little bit about Sellacopter in the past. Sellacopter is also a sponsor of the show, so maybe occasionally you hear the ads pop up. But maybe you're not super familiar with, what Sellacopter is. And I thought this could be just a fun little chat about why I started selling aircraft, how I started selling aircraft, what I love about it, what's challenging about it, and, what I'm excited about. It's just been a crazy adventure. Life is interesting, right? You have ideas and thoughts, like you have your life planned out, and then all of a sudden you're there, and then things change. For me, air medical was like the end all be all. I was so excited to fly air medical. It's like what got me into helicopters. And in fact, I remember 2 instances growing up where I was a little kid and I saw Life Flight, or I should say Air Medical. Well, I was in Oregon, so it could have been Life Flight Network actually, but I saw Air Medical helicopter. One landed a day use at a camping ground after a kid broke his back jumping off a cliff into the water. And the second one was actually across from my house. I grew up across from a graveyard. Spooky, I know. And there was a really bad car accident on the main road there. And Life Flight or Air Medical Company came in and picked them up. They landed in the graveyard there, actually. And so I remember seeing the 2 air medical helicopters as a little guy, and I was infatuated, call it lustful for helicopters at that point, and specifically that mission. So for me, that was like my career ideal. That's what I thought I was aspiring to do. So all the training I did, all the jobs that I had before I got there was all under the mission of, hey, I want to fly air medical. And so when that opportunity finally came, I was so excited. I went through training. I got hired by a company called Air Evac Life Team. They're awesome. Really loved the training. I loved working for them. Really strong program, nice equipment. I flew the 407 mainly, sometimes even the 206. But man, they had great aircraft, upgraded cockpits, great crews, and great management. Really, we talk about SMS sometimes on the show. They really had a just culture. And so I really enjoyed working for them. But it wasn't that long into that job that I realized that I didn't actually want to do that for the rest of my life. Primarily, I was looking around and some of the old codgers that were flying my same job, say my opposite pilot or whatnot, they're all kind of old, little disheveled, kind of grumpy, not maybe in the best of shape either, and they didn't actually seem that they loved the job. And it became very apparent to me after doing the job for a little bit that it's a very demanding job. Yes, there's a lot of time that you're sitting around doing nothing, which can actually cause like some sedentariness and kind of being sitting around. And, sometimes you can exercise or do other things, but sometimes it's just easy to sit on the lazy boy and watch Netflix and eat food. So that's not necessarily good for your physical and mental health. But it's challenging because it's a stressful job. You have to make quick decisions on weather, on other factors. And sometimes you're doing this from asleep at like 3 a.m. And if there's anything that I covenant more in life than anything really is sleep. I love sleep. I just love getting my 8 hours. I'm a new father, like I said, so that's out the window. That's not happening now, but I love my daughter and it's all worth it, but it's hard. Even that's hard. I love this little human more than anything. And I'm still at 3 a.m, kind of annoyed that I'm up. And so you can imagine the air medical night shift really threw me off. So this was a critical point for me that, think about it. This is all I wanted to do. All I ever thought I wanted to do was fly helicopters for air medical purposes. And don't get me wrong, the mission was pretty cool. Landing on highways, landing on a lot of cool different off airports, some really cool hospital pads, elevated pads there in San Antonio. My first ever air medical flight, of course, I'm on a tangent. That's fine though. It's okay to be on a tangent. There's no script here, so I'm just going to go for it. But my first ever air medical flight, I was based in Del Rio, Texas on the border. And that you get all trained up for San Antonio. You're going to take all your flights from Del Rio to San Antonio. You might pick up a scene here or there, but ultimately you're going to end up in San Antonio. San Antonio, San Antonio, San Antonio. So by the time you're actually flying by yourself, you're like, okay, I've been to all the hospitals in San Antonio. Air Evac puts you in the helicopter with another pilot, and you fly around and you get a lay of the land. It's great. Well, of course, my first flight took me halfway between Del Rio and San Angelo. And my flight crew was like, hey, let's go to the trauma center in San Angelo. Okay. Type it into the GPS and made the way there. And kind of a tight spot ground pad, but you had to go between these 2 buildings. And then there was construction happening, a crane, and they had to move the crane over while you were landing. It was this whole thing. So crazy experience, but fun. I love that stuff. I mean, that's like the joy of flying helicopters, landing on a highway, landing off airport, flying at night with NVGs, like a superpower. So cool. So I love the mission part, but just the lifestyle part of it, I just knew very early on that it wasn't for me. And prior to that, I had helped my friend sell her helicopter. In fact, I think I've talked about it on here before, but I had been flying an aircraft in Texas, an R-44 for a gal, and then I ended up kind of running a business with it, and then she decided to sell it. And so we hired a broker. And in that experience of hiring the broker, I thought the guy was like, not great, honestly. And I was always slightly entrepreneurial, and I had just been running this little helicopter business. So maybe I was just feeling very entrepreneurial at the time. But I thought, man, based on that experience, I feel like I could do better. In fact, the gal ended up terminating the contract with that broker, and we just ended up selling the aircraft ourselves. And we fumbled our way through it. But, ultimately, it's kind of an aha moment. But it wasn't like an aha moment of like, oh, this is what I'm going to do forever. It was like, that was interesting. And then I stewed on it for really, honestly, a couple of years. I had moved to Vegas by that point. It was flying air tours there in the Grand Canyon, having a good time, making decent money, but feeling like I wanted to do something entrepreneurial. And so I started to kind of, at that point, dabble back into helicopter sales. And that was kind of near the end of doing the Grand Canyon stuff. Got hired on Air Medical. That was one benefit of Air Medical, is that you had a lot of free time, as I mentioned a little bit earlier in the show. And so instead of sitting around and watching Netflix or whatever, I was like, hey, I'm going to cold call people that have helicopters and listen on controller or trade plan or whatever, and see if I can't start doing this consistently. Looked it up. I saw that you didn't need a license or a certification. It was kind of the Wild West. There's no regulations. I was like, let's just see what happens. So literally just from the Air Medical base there, started cold calling people, started networking, started getting little listings here and there, mainly Robinson aircraft. They was pretty familiar with the R-22 and the R-44. They're easy aircraft to vet as well, right? Everything's kind of on the same, all the components, that is, and inspections are on relatively the same interval. And again, being familiar with the aircraft, it was kind of a comfort zone. There was another guy at the time selling a lot of Robinson. He still does, Jimmy Garce, over at TJ Helicopters. And I picked up the phone, called him, introduced myself, and man, he was awesome. He was very willing to share information. To this day, Jimmy and I have a good relationship, and credit to him. I was a quote unquote competitor coming into the space, and my guess is a part of him had seen other people come in and realize how hard it is, and then kind of drop out. Maybe he didn't recognize that I was pretty resilient, but I don't even think he cares either way, to be honest. He does great in business, and he's an awesome guy. And in fact, when you're looking for a broker, you should definitely consider TJ Helicopters. Jimmy Garce is a good dude. But he was helpful. He was kind of an open book. And, through my just kind of early beginnings of cold calling and networking and trying to pick up deals, and then also talking with Jimmy, I started to kind of figure it out a little bit. But I didn't know anything, honestly. I remember the first helicopter that we got hired to acquire.
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
It was actually like my first official transaction. It was an R-44 acquisition, which is hilarious because what I've learned is like selling an acquisition, convincing someone that they should pay you to, buy a helicopter. It's a hard sell for us. It's something that we're really good at. And, for many reasons, I highly recommend that you hire a professional when you're acquiring a helicopter. But my first official deal was acquiring an R-44. That R-44 is actually famous. No, it did not crash. But no, I won't tell you why it's famous, but it is famous. Maybe someone can figure out why it's famous, but let's just say it's really good at doing autos. Anyway, so that was my first acquisition. And even going into it, I remember having to call my mom and ask my mom, hey, what is escrow? What's an escrow account? She was in real estate and she explained it to me and realized that there are some aviation specific title companies. In fact, there's a lot of great ones. They're all located in Oklahoma City, conveniently next to the FAA. And opened up my first escrow account, ran that deal, went pretty okay. And from there, just kind of slowly built off that. I don't know, call it about a year into doing it more consistently. I was having some momentum, but it was very much a side hustle or really even a hobby. I wasn't putting a ton of stress on myself. I was making a decent living. So any kind of extra money felt like beer money, right? And it was just a fun thing I enjoyed doing. And at that time, I had a partner in the business, a guy named Mike, good dude. Ended up buying him out kind of early on. He was just busy with his maintenance business. It wasn't any partner issues or anything like that. But, we had a cool little thing going. He was getting clientele through his maintenance shop, and I was cold calling and doing business development. It's really cool. Intermixed in that time, my wife started working at a roofing company in San Antonio. And I went to an event, some local event that the roofing company was, had a booth at, some type of community event. And it was after a recent hailstorm. And so they're selling roofs based on insurance claims. And I was talking to the owner of the company, and I was like, hey, I'm in sales. What are you guys selling tonight? Hey, we're selling inspections. Like, we'll come and do a free inspection. And he's like, I'll give you $50 for every inspection that you sell. Okay. He gave me a little spiel. I went out and that night sold, more inspections than any of the other sales reps. And soon enough, I found myself selling roofs full time and doing door-to-door sales, specifically after hailstorms, and selling a roofing product through insurance claims. And why I talk about that is because before that experience, I wasn't a salesman. Honestly, I understood sales. I had some intuitiveness. I think sales to a degree is a lot of intuitiveness, actually. But I didn't have technique. I didn't have proper coaching. Now, I could have a whole other podcast on why I didn't really love that roofing company, but that's neither here or there. But the one thing I will give them credit for is the owner was pretty relentless and he's a good salesman, right? He knew what he was doing. He was really good at selling roofs, and he was good at mentoring and helping sales reps learn how to do door-to-door and overcoming objections. And look, I can tell you, anyone that's ever had the kahunas to knock on a door and try to make business out of it, it's hard. It's not easy. You're starting in a disadvantage. That experience was interesting because I learned and became a much better salesperson. But I was also flying full-time, air medical at the time. So I was doing a lot of that on my week off. And because I was so busy with that and the air medical, my helicopter sales kind of started to dwindle. And really, that was always a bit of a side hustle. I wasn't making a ton of money. All of a sudden, I'm selling roofs and I'm making, thousands of dollars every month and thinking, oh my God, maybe I should do this. It actually got to the point where I assumed that I would probably quit flying, sell roofs, and close up the brokerage for helicopters. I thought roofing was kind of my path. And so I started to kind of make some mental decisions and talking with my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, of course, Hillary, about, not really being happy after a couple of years of flying air medical and wanting to go full time with the roofing. And she was on board. We had some savings. The roofing paid pretty well. It's commission based, but I was doing well. And so I kind of made that decision. But I was going to give myself a little bit of time before I fully figured it out. I thought maybe I'll go be an airline pilot. Maybe I'll do the roofs. But the brokerage just wasn't there. It wasn't in my heart anymore for selling aircraft, that is. And quit flying. And right away, I kind of just knew that I might have made a mistake of saying like, hey, I want to get out of the industry completely. And as much as I enjoyed the money I was making with roofs, I wasn't passionate about it. I wasn't passionate about going into someone's house and selling them on this amazing roof, only to have these installers that didn't really care about the homeowner's property. And there's always issues. And it was, you're the sales rep, you're the face, you're always getting yelled at. Just, it wasn't my cup of tea. And I wasn't going to go back to air medical flying. So, the backup was what? Well, I've sold a couple of helicopters. I'm just going to put all my energy into that. It keeps me in the industry, and it's something that I'm passionate about. I think that's what makes someone good at sales. And that's some things that I learned while selling roofs that, I learned the technique, but ultimately the technique only got me so far, right? I wasn't passionate about roofs. Who is? I don't know. I guess there's some people that are. My passion was helicopters and aviation. So I put all my time, effort, and energy into my brokerage. At that time, it was called Aircraft Brokerage of Texas. We decided to rebrand, and that's where Sellacopter was born, which is cheeky. I think it's a cheeky name, but I think it's a fun name. I think in the beginning, people thought it was cheeky and maybe didn't take us super seriously. But now that we've been doing this for a while and we do good work and we try to, lead by ethics and just be good stewards to our clients, I think Sellacopter is now bringing on some brand recognition. And I think people, by and large, appreciate the name. But for the record, I think it's a little bit silly. We had hired a third party to help us kind of with that original marketing. And Jeff Goldblatt, who I met through that roofing company, was the guy that came up with the name Sellacopter. Right away, it was kind of the name that we were going to pick. They presented like 6 or 7 different names, and Sellacopter was born. And by that point, I had done enough aircraft transactions to realize that what was lacking in my business and in the industry was standardization. And so that was kind of like goal number one was, how can I standardize the process? How can I turn, this kind of lackluster, winging it type of mentality, and how can I standardize it? Just like real estate, right? Whether you have a real estate transaction in, say, Oregon here or New York, it's going to be relatively the same. The forms might be different and generated from different states and whatnot, but by and large, the transaction flows the same way. For me, I wanted to create that same standardized process. It's almost like when you go to, Starbucks in your hometown, and then you go to Starbucks in Thailand, your Frappuccino tastes the same. People like standardization, and I figured if I could create standardization around the helicopter specific sales process, then I could maybe gain client loyalty and retention. And that's what I did. I brought on a couple buddies to help me start building the brand, help me with greater business development, outreach, lots of cold calling. So I went from door knocking to cold calling. Honestly, prefer door knocking. The face-to-face, people can be pretty mean to you door knocking, but they can be meaner on the phone. So lots of cold calls and, lots of FUs and hang-ups, and but also a lot of really great conversations and a lot of new clients born through that type of direct marketing. And it truly was just a hustle, especially that first year was just go, 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 go. And we grew significantly. Our revenue year one of what I call full-time Sellacopter was quite good, actually. In fact, we've continued to grow revenue-wise from year one, which is something that you want to do as a business, but not at the magnitude of that first year. I mean, that was just, we just went Richter. We are now moving into airplanes this year, and so we are seeing now that diversification help us kind of skyrocket our revenue a little bit faster than we've seen over the last couple of years. So that's exciting. But man, it was just really fun. It was a fun, exciting, scary time in the beginning days of Sellacopter. We didn't really have much money. It was all shoestring, but we did it. And we worked hard. We put our head down, and we just continued to get better. And we kept learning things. I think that's kind of the key factor. I often think like we're like the Farmers Insurance, they have that, I like their ads that they say, we've seen a thing or two. And so that's why they've seen a tree, go through a car or whatever it is. And And so they know how to insure it. They know how to navigate it. Well, that's how I feel about, helicopter and now airplane transactions as well. As I think I've seen every scenario. I've been in every situation. And through that, we've been able to create processes, standard operating procedures on how we navigate a transaction. Transactions inherently are going to be individualized, meaning not every transaction will always be the same. It's not like you can create that same consistency like a Starbucks drink, but you can create pretty close to at least a flow consistency, which is really important to us. It's kind of this systematic approach is what we call, and it's a pillar of our business. And that was all written through just trial and error. And now we're at a point where it's almost like we can see the future. We can see when a transaction is heading in a weird direction or potentially in a good direction, or how do we self-correct? And it's just been really cool to watch that happen.
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com.
Since that time, I've been able to bring on like-minded individuals to act and serve as sales reps, mainly helicopter people that understand helicopters, airplane guys as well. And man, we're having a lot of fun. It's stressful. It can be very cyclical, right? This business, helicopter specific, is very driven around the economy. So when things are going good in the economy, our business goes pretty good. If things are stagnant or slow in the economy, we see a little bit of a slowdown. So it's navigating that. It's understanding how to manage cash, we're commission only. As a business owner, how do you manage that cash flow? That's the lifeline of a business, right? Without cash, you're not really a business. And it's scary to, have your salary and your wife's salary, because my wife, Hillary, is a full-time employee for Sellacopter. Both of our livings are based on our success in selling aircraft. And we have really good months, and we still sometimes have bad months. What we're trying to aim for is more consistency. And we've seen that increase in consistency. We're learning as a team all the time. And, what I can say is that, we haven't strayed away from kind of the core values, the pillars of our business. And that's having a systematic approach to sales and acquisition. So again, I've talked about that. It's so important to have like this consistent process that's repeatable. The other pillar that's really important, and I know that this is maybe almost a throwaway, but for us, it truly means something, is holding, ourselves to the highest ethical standards. Something that I learned in this business very early on, because it's fairly unregulated, there's a lot of things that you can do to make a lot of money, but they skirt or completely blast through what I call the lens of ethics. And to us, it's so important, specifically because customer acquisition is so hard to begin with. So we want to keep customers. I don't think you can do that if you're not ethical. If you're doing shady back-end deals, or you're just not doing things to the highest level of ethics and standards, then I don't think that you have that retention. And so, at the detriment to our bottom line, we really take ethics seriously. If there's ever a question, if it teeters the line of an ethical decision, it's a no-brainer for us. We just don't go there. And I think that's been a really big, important part of our growth, is by having those, consistent ethics. And then of course that repeatable systematic process for sales and acquisition is gives people that confidence, like we know what we're doing. And man, it's just been a journey. It's been so fun. Admittedly, the podcast was born on this idea of how can I connect with the industry that I serve on this helicopter end but not be so like in your face. Even today feels a little bit strange talking so much about Sellacopter because I've always tried to keep kind of church and state separate, so to speak, in regards to the podcast having its own identity and Sellacopter having its identity. But I think it's the purpose of the podcast was to connect, was to engage with the industry that I serve. And it's been really cool. It's been a great business development tool for Sellacopter. And so you do something because you think it's going to be one thing. And for the podcast, I thought A, no one would listen. And B, if someone does, maybe it's good for Sellacopter. Through that, though, it's turned into this incredible, amazing thing that I could have never imagined. I'm getting messages. Just before I hopped on here, I got a LinkedIn message from a guy named Kyle. Kyle, if you're listening, what was your last name again, Kyle? Kyle Stoker just messaged me and said that he's a fan and that I'm helping, keep his fire alive for wanting to learn how to fly helicopters while he figures out some ways to fund it. I get messages like this daily. And that's so cool. That's like something I never expected. Because honestly, the podcast was just supposed to support the Sellacopter brand, and now it's become its own brand in itself and part of MHM publishing and the sponsorship and everything. It's just, so cool. It's all because of Sellacopter. I wouldn't be doing this actually if it wasn't for it. So, Sellacopter is a direct result to the Helicopter podcast. Recently, we expanded into airplanes. Sellacopter is not a great airplane name. So our sister brand, which is owned by the same holding company, we call ABT, Aircraft Brokerage of Texas, is called North American Aircraft Brokerage, and NAAB. And that's our fixed wing brand. We're exclusively selling and helping people acquire airplanes through that brand. And we're now transitioning our sales team to not only be sales ninjas with helicopters, but also in airplanes. And really excited to expand into that. Anytime you're changing or scaling or doing something new, it's a little bit scary. So there's definitely been some intense moments, but man, we've had some big victories already on the NAAB side. North American Aircraft Brokerage has moved a $11.4 million jet already, which is really cool. We've sold several airplanes. We're about to put an airplane under contract probably today, maybe tomorrow. So just so many cool things happening there. And again, it's just funny. I never thought that my life would be owning a business that specializes in the global transaction of aircraft. Started with helicopters and now helicopters and airplanes, and truly global. We've acquired and sold aircraft from Europe and Asia, Australia, New Zealand, Mexico, Central America, Canada. Become a little bit of a guru of importing aircraft here in the United States. That process that used to be this big scary thing, and honestly, it's not. We're so well versed in doing it. And again, it was scary at the time. We've had to learn some hard lessons. That includes on the import side, but it's all sharpened our tool. All helped made us more effective salespeople. So. Yeah, that's Sellacopter. That's what I currently do. And I foresee me doing it forever. I guess, I don't know, maybe that will change. Maybe my life will veer in a different direction at some point. But right now, I feel very content. I'm very happy. I love what I do. Some days are hard. Some days are scary. And some days are freaking awesome. And most days are somewhere in between all of that. And that's kind of the interesting part of entrepreneurialism in general, honestly. It's like, one phone call, you could be closing on a $11 million jet, and the next phone call, you're losing a deal, on a 44 or 66 or something, lots of highs, lots of lows. You just have to kind of figure out where to find your steady place. And man, we're learning every day. Sellacopter isn't perfect, but we're always willing to try to be the best possible company. And we do it with ethics, of course, being the biggest part of it. So just excited to be a part of it. And the podcast has been a great tool. If you're listening to the podcast and you're like, hey man, I want to sell an aircraft. I got a 44 or I got a 407 or a 130 or an A-Star I want to sell. Man, we would love for you to consider using Sellacopter. We do free aircraft valuation. So if you're wondering what your aircraft would sell for in the market, it's a no commitment, no no hassle, no obligation. Look, snapshot at the market, see what kind of listing strategy we would present to you in regards to pricing. We're pretty good, at understanding pricing. Sellers don't always agree with our pricing, but they eventually kind of figure it out themselves, I suppose. But I'd love to talk with you and help you navigate that. If you're looking at buying an aircraft, we love doing acquisitions. We do acquisitions for big operators, and we do acquisitions for private owners. We're doing an acquisition that we're finishing up right now on a Long Ranger. It's been a labor of love, lots of due diligence. There are some title issues that we had to help get worked through. We got them worked through. We're great at problem solving, and I think that's what really makes us great brokers is our ability to problem solve. And so, just love to chat with you if that's something that you're interested in. And again, I appreciate you listening to this podcast specific to today. Usually we're talking to guests or I'm talking about something that's not so centered around me. But being the host of the show, I figured it could be cool for you guys to just learn and hear a little bit more about what I do on a day-to-day basis. The podcast is also part of my identity, and I'm excited to do the podcast. I'm excited to continue to record the podcast. And I wouldn't do it if it wasn't for you guys that listen. It's so inspiring to hear from you guys when I'm at a helicopter show, whether it's in Europe or here in the States. People come up to me and, they're listeners. And it's just really a neat thing to think that I could sit here in my little upstairs office and my voice can be heard globally, in a niche helicopter market that I love so much. And so I just appreciate you guys for being loyal supporters. I appreciate MHM Publishing, of course, for the vertical HeliCASTS platform and everything that you guys have done to help me grow this podcast and actually monetize the podcast. That's been pretty cool. I never thought I'd get paid to podcast, but we have sponsors now. And with that comes some compensation. So that's cool. It's not why I do it. Certainly can't retire on it. I do it because I like connecting with the market that I serve, specific to my Sellacopter brand. And it's just so cool that the Helicopter podcast itself has turned into its own brand. So thank you for listening. 37 minutes, a little bit long. Blab, blab, blab. I'm going to go hang out with my daughter now. That's going to be fun. So excited. Fatherhood. I'm like 4 weeks into it. And it's about as tiring and incredible as everyone tells you it's going to be. But certainly the next journey. Not sure if she'll be in aviation or not. I think that'd be pretty cool if she is. We need more ladies, and it'd be cool to usher her into that. But, obviously I'll let her choose her path. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this solo podcast. Check you later on the Helicopter Podcast.
Please stay tuned for a final word from our sponsors.
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support. Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com.